welcome to Western Sydney Unfiltered with a bloke who regularly is fairly unfiltered anyway, Mike Rodrigues, the new 24-hour economy commissioner and the person the Premier's turned to help dig us out of a COVID hangover. Mike, welcome to the Golden. I know you're not no stranger to the Golden West, but welcome to the Digital Dialogue series.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, Chris. Pleasure to be here.
But it's quite a journey from, I grew up reading Time Out, gig guides, and and in a tourism sense, where to go, what to do. It's become a global publishing phenomena. But from your, distinguished and award-winning editorial background, it's not a natural presumption to now become economic czar of New South Wales. So maybe fill us in on the steps in between.
Or is it, Chris? Or is it? The story.
Touche, sir. Touche.
Like what sits at the heart of Time Out is this unbridled, somewhat annoying ambition to get people out of the house having fun in their city. Every piece of content that publication writes should end with an action, and this is how you go do it. In 2016, as the person who founded Time Out in Sydney to celebrate Sydney to the world, I found myself wanting to shift states, and I thought that was unacceptable. And unacceptable in that if that's how I'm feeling about it, then how many other people? And so I thought, screw this, I'm going to go try and do something about it, which was say, well how do we get the conditions for going out back right in Sydney? And that meant, amongst other things, setting up 2 industry bodies and then becoming a leading advocate around nighttime economy, which is a argument around the overall value of going out versus what people eat and drink after 6 p.m. And that led to, the 24-hour economy strategy ultimately and the shifting of laws. And so it's in some ways, and I often take opportunities like this to explain that I'm really agnostic about what people do as long as they're not sitting at home for excessive periods of time on the couch. So if that means going for a walk along the beach or going to a cinema, engaging in burlesque or live music or retail, getting a haircut a couple of times a month, whatever.
But can we come back to the burlesque? Because that's what truly piques my attention. And no viewers don't think about me as a burlesque dancer, but simply as a purveyor of fine exotic dance. No, I mean, I think the point's entirely correct. It's about an activated economy.
That's right.
You're probably part of the invention of one of those trendy new words in city shaping, the nighttime economy. It's up there with precincts and placemaking. That's my favourite. If you're not placemaking this town at the moment, you're really not in the middle of anything.
We love it.
But now, also, some of your best work done earlier when we're talking about coming out of a COVID lockdown era. This city, really, a lot of your prominence came out of the last lockdown. It was a lockdown when publicans were letting the joint out of control, and whether you agree with how long it went or how it was, I spoke out publicly in favour of the lockdown at the time because the city was a little out of control. As Western Sydney now explores its nighttime economy opportunities within, how do we not import some of the fun, the siege the city was under 10 years ago when at first was brought in to try and quell rampaging groups of kids, pissed as a ute, rolling the streets kind of thing. Have we got a smarter and safer nighttime economy now?
Well, the government strategy is giving this a lot of consideration, and there's not a day I don't think about the responsibility I have as the state's inaugural commissioner to honour the legacy of the Kelly family and ensure that, unlike its most recent history since colonisation, Sydney's nightlife doesn't go on its usual swing cycle from prohibition to decadence every 20 years, which is what happens. So there's an intervention that the strategy requires me to secure and deliver, and that is to follow in the footsteps of what's happened in the UK and Sweden, amongst other jurisdictions, with a simple concept, purple flag, which you go to the beach, it's safe to swim because there's flags. You go to a good going out district, and what does that mean? A good going out district should have a diversity of offering. It should have good transport in and out. It should offer a great consumer experience. It should be well lit. These types of concepts, and so
responsible operators like Newtown put in place the compact.
Correct.
In Newtown, where they all shared information, and
that's right,
as they were the beneficiary of the lockdown. But hopefully, places like Parramatta and others could take on that mentality.
And so what it isn't is a revision back to recent history. What it is a reimagining of the future of going out, and the natural check and balance for, I think, Western Sydney, Chris, and, it's a large area. Oftentimes we say Western Sydney like it's one postcode. It's not. But what I know is that the demographics of that area are markedly different to areas where our traditional nightlife may have been associated with. So I was scorned, Chris, for my ridiculous claim that you should be able to go out and have a good time in Sydney for $50. Now, the reason I think that's possible is because
it's not $25 a drink at the bar.
Correct. Yeah. The ticket corner platter for two, I can tell you what, fills you and me up for under a 50, and neither of us are small men. So, it's really about contextualizing what going out is, and if that means
when Malcolm Seared, a 30-minute city originally, 30 minutes to where you can get at night is not an important consideration. I think neither of us, I don't know if you're the same, but the city's going to play a thunderstorm as we record this interview. It's getting a bit noisy there. I'm going through a timber experience here. But that thought of a 30-minute city at night is even more important than getting home safely at night. And the stay kind work the Kelly family doing now is tremendous. This is Red Frog equivalent to getting kids home safely. It's the father of young adult men. I'm worried every time I for something like that. But I think it's tremendous that we've got a new platform. And the Rom Corps had become the AHA for a while there. It was there is now a smarter approach to alcohol, pokies, etc. And a more genuinely deep depth to our nighttime offering. And come and get pissed, and get pissed.
And also a change of consumption behaviour. Alcohol per capita is declining. Heaps normal. Non-alcoholic beer just raised $8.3 million the other day. Seedlip, a non-alcoholic spirit, Diageo bought for a large fortune actually, and so the offering and expectation of customers is changing. Now, I'm not going to say that alcohol is not part of the going out economy. Of course it is, but it doesn't need to be the focus.
Doesn't have to be all there is. So you take that, the success you had in the nighttime economy, government looks to you to say the second wave of the lockdown. So you helped come out of the first lockdown, second lockdown for a different reason, COVID, again, caused a bit like, or the cause being we want to get people out now, your cause. What did you learn from the first one that you apply in a very different circumstance for a Sydney post-lockdown, COVID lockdown?
It's a good question. And what I think about a lot is resilient businesses. What happened with the first lockdown is that some businesses adapted to the situation and started creating diverse revenue lines in their business, and making consumption easier for consumers, mainly through the use of technology. There was businesses that may not have chosen to do that, thinking to wait it out. Well, the second time that this has happened, then your ability to adapt and diversify revenue in that case is now, you need to be able to do that, or unless you're so big it doesn't matter. But that's not the majority of businesses, and so I'm really trying to encourage businesses to think about the customer, to think about the competitive offering that the choice that the customer has these days when they're deciding whether to stay home, order in, 2 clicks, you're done. What about when you go out? What price point should things be at? How easy is it for the customer to consume? So I think that the sector as a whole, when you start getting into the different parts of the 24-hour economy, I'm encouraging them to work better together, because putting on a collective show rather than just it's only about my restaurant or is the way that the going out economy provides a more compelling offer to the consumer.
The Economic Recovery Commissioner role, and maybe blending the two. I spoke to the Premier last week, but you were out as well, and said, why don't we get a cabinet meeting held in Western Sydney? Why don't we remind the business people, like our conference this week, Boomtown, 400 and something delegates, and Wackle Stadium. The first time it's actually held in the West, but finally dragging the financiers to the region then to help in finance and build.
Great.
Is there a way the government can lead the charge of having its meetings using facilities from the Inglis thing at Warwick Farms, throughout to Penrith, up to the hills, down to Campbelltown? How can government lead the charge on reminding businesses that they've got a role to play in trying to re-stimulate those lockdown economies?
Yeah, I see myself as a bit of a champion within government. I know that you have others, but for example, for me, my 2 advisory group meetings. I've been in Parramatta for 1, and next time I'm bringing out, everyone's coming to Parramatta. I've just launched a podcast called The Neon Grid. First guest, Lindy Dietz, Campbelltown GM. Like
the Titan of the Southwest.
Yeah, we've got to rethink our approach, not just talk about it, but lead by action. So if we're looking at attracting conferences to New South Wales or to Sydney, what does that look like actually? Why can't they be housed in another city outside of Sydney? That's got to be.
Might even give momentum for the showgrounds getting a real convention centre for
the
park that we know as well. Well, this morning we've celebrated the turning of the first solid urban surf, a wave park in Olympic Park. So the West now has everything, even surf. So there's no reason we can't host everything coming through. Last one for you, Mike. What if you're a Western Sydney business watching this and thinking, I want to get a slice of that recovery action? What's your advice? What sort of mechanisms are in place where businesses can step up and take advantage of your agency? And that's what you've been given by government.
Yeah, so I've been in the job 7 months now, and partly because reopening was brought forward in a sense, we've held off launching new programs, but we've got a couple of things coming up next year. I'm overseeing the CBD's Revitalisation Fund, which the proudest part of that is the S on the word CBD, i.e. it's and that's a first step, but centres like Parramatta, Penrith, Blacktown, Campbelltown, all eligible to apply. Then we've got a project called Uptown, which will take, I guess, and I think Western Sydney will embrace this because people in the West tend to know how to get together and work together. And really, what 24-hour economy hinges on is successful collaboration between New South Wales government, local councils, and industry. And so I'm running around and engaging with as many councils as possible, from elected through bureaucracy, making sure that there's alignment in that council around the ambition, which is why things like the release of the late night DCP for Parramatta are great ones to watch. Let's follow that process and make sure it gets a good airing, it gets people on board, not just from by that I mean genuinely engage the community and bring them on the journey around the potential for 24-hour economy.
But it's great. There is a real buzz around. I think that's coming out strongly, coming out together. And it is, if this works well, if it works as well as you're able to stimulate post the first lockdown, the pub lockdown, COVID lockdown, then I think we'd be pretty confident.
Yeah.
And, I know you'll have Western Sydney at the heart of that. You'd prove
absolutely.
That
Absolutely. And like things like Dine and Discover, I mean, one of the things I'm looking at is making sure that we see increased uptake by venues in the first instance and then consumers in the second in Western Sydney as much as anywhere in Sydney or New South Wales. And so it's things like digital literacy.
Let's face it, $25 goes a lot further at Aljana and Penrith than it does what adjusts its joints in the eastern suburbs. So.
A friend wouldn't ask and a gentleman wouldn't say, but I think you could be right there.
I noticed at the Bradfield race this week, the Premier questions were asked about, I think one of your colleagues from the digital world, from the metaverse, spoke about the need to have virtual dance parties and wondered why Justin Hens wouldn't support it. I think he yelled out, I don't think you can buy a beer virtually. There is an element of, as much as the Luddite in me can put aside and virtual gigs sound great.
Yeah.
And we're doing this place, so I think the city's starting to look all across the city, starting to appreciate the fact we can go out and be humans again.
Well, I always say, put a loaf of bread on the table straight out of the oven. No one wants to consume that virtually. It's all about coming around the fireplace, isn't it? And being with your friends and family.
Perfect call. Good luck. Godspeed to you. Western Sydney's right behind you. We suffered more in this lockdown. We want to lead the recovery coming out of it. So yell out if the West is here to help.
You are, and I will help, and I look forward to working with everyone.
Thanks, Mike.